Kyle, just maybe give us a rundown of, for you've been in the private equity side, you're looking at deals. Explain how that process works at a basic level. How you're shopping deals, how you're, evaluating assets, who's involved in that process, and maybe we'll just start from there and just work from cradle to grave all the way through closing.
Yeah, absolutely. Just from the beginning, I think it probably starts with the type of deal you're looking at, whether it's unsolicited and you're just trying to work with someone on the side, or if it's shop deal or a part of a, broader process, maybe with a bank or someone
It's
else.
like a
And
marketed
yeah,
type
marketed type
deal.
deal. Exactly. And so,
Yeah.
and in either event, you're usually diving in pretty quick on the assets. If it's an unsolicited deal, maybe you've done some stuff in advance and you identify some assets that you like and you kind of pre-scoped it. If it's a marketed deal, you're getting into the data room and then just trying to get your hands on everything and anything you can as early as possible. And so that'll range from the land team to your technical guys, whether it's engineering, geology, reservoir guys, and then of course finance and accounting. So it really
Yeah.
does become a kind of all hands on deck type process with everyone kind of getting in the weeds and trying to get familiar with the assets.
Yeah. How does, how does, what types of companies maybe pursue the unsolicited type, methodology or process to find an asset? Do you tend to see certain types of companies are going in, maybe if they're already operating in an area and they're wanting to expand their position, maybe they're doing unsolicited type offers, or is it really just all of the
I
above?
think it's across the board. Even whether you're small or big, if you see something that someone else has and you like it, our philosophy at Eagle Mountain's always been kind of, why wait? Let's at least see if we can open a discussion and see if someone was interested.
Yeah.
I can't speak for everyone, but maybe private equity in general, it's kind of the saying you're always buying, but you're always selling, So
Yeah.
we're constantly looking at stuff, but my gosh, if someone comes to us with a really solid offer, we're willing to entertain it. And so
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
if I see the world that way, I like to think that others see it that way too, but not necessarily, it kind of just
Yeah.
depends on what that company was set up to do.
So over the years, we worked with, operational teams, people pushing rigs, certain types of landmen on the asset side. And then we work with BD landmen. Is that kind of BD, that BD landman role? Is that primarily what they're doing? Are they sourcing trying to sniff out unsolicited opportunities? Is that primarily the type of landman that's doing that work? Unless you're in a small shop where you're having to do everything.
Yeah, yeah. I think it also, yeah, it very much depends on the shop, but yeah, very much a BD type role. But some places may not have the luxury of having a BD specific lineman, or an operation specific lineman. You might have someone who does it all. I can say with confidence I do that here for Eagle Mountain. And so, I wear a lot of hats, but there, whether you're doing it all yourself, you're doing it, as part of the team, there's a lot of communication and kind of, a lot you can learn from each other as far as what's going on. You might be in operations and running rigs, et cetera, and hearing stuff from the field level that you're able to communicate to your BD corporate team to, say, hey, look, I heard these people might be doing X, or, field guys are saying they might be selling in a couple of months, see if you can get ahead of a process or not. And so, same thing from the BD side. They might be hearing like, hey, there's a big process going on. How does that impact our field development as far as maybe certain locations we want to target it where we weren't previously kind of eyeing or thinking about? So it kind of all
Yeah.
goes hand in hand, but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it all starts with usually a phone call or just trying to make connections, I guess.
Bump into somebody at the landman hangout, sniff it out. So I think so. You typically see, the work that we do. There's two types of diligence, right? There's trade diligence where it's smaller in scope. You're really laser focused on, trading acreage or whatever the case might be, and then there's big asset type transactions. And I think for the purposes of our discussion, that's where I think we want to live here. So, so you've sniffed out an opportunity, and maybe it's a marketed deal, and you're moving forward. Maybe say like so on a marketed type transaction, or typically is there like a due date of when bids need to be submitted? Is that kind of how that process
Yeah, no,
works?
exactly. So usually in a marketed process, they'll give you a calendar of events, where they'll say, hey, VDR opens on X date. And for those who don't know, a VDR is your virtual data room. So it's like your
Yeah.
kind of online
Okay.
portal usually where you can get in and see all the seller's
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
So you'll have your
What's
VDR.
in there?
Help me.
Like what's in a VDR?
Yeah, it's
Good and bad.
it varies.
Generally it's garbage.
Yeah, some all VDRs are not built equally. I'll say that. Some are definitely better than others. Yeah, you'll typically have at the very least like a lease schedule, a well schedule or exhibit. Um, reserves for the engineering team to run, maybe certain material contracts, financials. Kind of it usually starts pretty high level, and then you're typically given like a Q&A opportunity where as you're digging into the assets, you can ask specific questions. We try and solicit some answers to get more information. But yeah, generally it'll kind of cover your main groups, as far as engineering, land, finance, regulatory, legal, and so
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. And so that Q&A process, is that typically like everybody who's bidding on it gets on a call and you can ask your questions, or is it more one-off and you present your questions and they give you specific answers?
It's typically both. And so what they'll do, like they'll allow you to ask specific Q&A questions, like submit it directly and then, solicit your answers, from the sellers. But usually part of the calendar when you're soliciting deal or not soliciting deals, when you're part of the marketed process, they'll set up basically a PowerPoint presentation where you can go in and the sellers will actually present to you, whether it's their board or their BD team or, certain individuals, that specialize in the different functions and kind of pitch the deal to you. And so you can hear from them directly and then be able to ask them questions as well. So we typically, at least at Eagle Mountain, try to take advantage of both, trying to learn as much as we can about the assets in the limited time that we
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. What's that timeline generally look at? Are we looking at 30 days, 60-day window? I mean, what do you tend to see there? I know it tends to happen pretty quickly when it happens, but
Yeah, I think that definitely varies too, but I think the most typical is probably anywhere from 30 to 45 days. We've seen some go as long as 60 days, maybe depends on the asset size and how long it may take to, realistically review what you need to review. But I'd say probably anywhere from 30 to 45 days is your typical timeline between,
yeah.
like VDR open date and then bid date.